Welcome back on the AM show with me, Benjamin Akapo. We ask the question, has government's time and luck run out when it comes to the IPPs, the independent power producers? We signed those purchase power agreements with them. It was take or pay, not take and pay. If we wanted to vary them, well, we would have had opportunity. These were contractual terms. And now we've got to the point where with many of these independent power producers, we have to renegotiate moving forward. Even more concerning, we'll have to bring more of those IPPs on board over the next few years to sustain our power generational capacity. But the bone of contention, the thorny issue now, is that we owe some $1.73 billion. In our energy sector debt, we owe over $2 billion. Just to the IPPs now, incrementally over the last few years, and even in the last few months, we owe them over $1.73 billion. And they are saying they want at least 30% paid upfront. We simply don't have the money, do we? The World Bank has said that we're going to get some $2 billion for different purposes. But as far as the IMF deal is concerned, this year, we're getting no more than $900 million. We've got $600 million already. And that money is being used for other matters to deal with the economy and stabilizing it. But if we wade into Dumsor once more, that could bring the economy back to its knees. These are the issues we're contemplating this morning on the show as we host our guests. Now, joining the conversation, Kojo Nsafwa-Poku is an energy analyst. He joins the conversation. We also have Adams Yakubu, Research Policy. He is with the Research Policy and Programs Office of the IES, the Institute for Energy Security. There's Dr. Yusuf Al-Hassan, who is an energy analyst. And we also have joining us from the powers that be, the Mines and Energy Committee of Parliament, Edward Bauer. All of them join us for a conversation this morning. Gentlemen, a very good morning to you.
All right, good morning, Ben. How are you?
I am very well. Is that Kojo Poku I'm hearing?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I see Edward Bauer. I see Dr. Al-Hassan as well, and Adams Yakubu. So let's do this. 2 minutes each for starters. We've had these conversations in the past, but we are here again and nobody is happy. Because dumne sodie, you know what it does. But if I asked you, what has led us here again? What would you say? I'll start with you, Kojo Poku. Please, let's limit ourselves to 2 minutes. These are just very brief initial comments. Kojo Poku, I'll start with you.
Well, Ben, we've always been here. I don't know why everybody is getting overexcited and exaggerating the situation as if we just landed in a situation that we've never been in. Energy sector indebtedness has always been there. We've always owed the IPPs. Look, let's put this thing in perspective. It is the chamber that is threatening, not the individual IPPs. The chamber, yes, the IPPs belong to the chamber. But I don't think all the IPPs are going to shut down their plants because of the legal implication of the PPA that they hold.
Are you aware that 3 of them have already done so?
Well, we have lights. Even if they've done that, our light haven't gone off, has it?
So because your light hasn't gone off, who knows whose light has gone off?
We are going to go into total darkness by virtue of a chamber saying so. Look, there is what is called a power purchase agreement. For you to basically shut down your supply and not supply anything to government, there is a process that you need to follow. One, there's a guarantee that you have. If you feel that you are indebted, you can call on that guarantee. When you call on that guarantee, within 30 days, government has to replenish the guarantee. If government doesn't replenish the guarantee, the PPA is terminated. Does the IPPs want to terminate the IPPA? I don't think so. So look, it's unfortunate that we owe them. And I think we should address the payment because, look, everybody talked about the cash waterfall. The cash waterfall came in and did not solve the problem. There are challenges in collection. There are challenges in under recoveries. When you said we owe, who owe? Every Ghanaian owe, because I have continuously said that we don't pay realistic prices for electricity. And when you say this, everybody will come and bite your neck off. Because we do not pay realistic prices, there are over 30% losses, 19% of the technical losses, 10% of financial commercial losses.
We have moved from the days of subsidies on electricity and others to the point where we are paying through our noses within the last how many windows? Within the last how many windows? The PURC
Ben,
is constantly increasing it. So how much more do we have to pay to sustain this?
Ben, let me put it straight. Until recently, we were under recovery. So there were subsidies in the system. Though nobody was paying it, it was now accumulating to what we have today as the debt. PURC, bear in mind, the IPPs are paid at the dollar rate. PURC, until recently, when they did the 12.73, was using under recovery in terms of FX. So look, it is now that we are on the right track. It is now that PLC is doing the right thing. So I hope that going forward, we'll be able to recover. But that doesn't stop the fact that there's 1.7 billion that needs to be paid, right? So we need to find a solution. And I'm well informed that on Tuesday, there was a meeting. Some IPPs are in agreement with the solution that was preferred. Today, there's going to be a meeting. I honestly don't think that tomorrow or Monday, we are going to have a total shutdown of our grid. It's not going to happen because there are laws and processes. If they want to shut down their power tomorrow, today, they have to call on that guarantee. If they don't call on that guarantee, it means they're not going to shut down tomorrow. If they shut down their plant, government can sue them because they have an agreement and obligation to Ghana. So it is not that simple. Let's not overemphasize the fact that we're going to wake up one morning and there's a total shutdown of our grid. It's not possible.
Thank you for those initial comments. Edward Bauer, over to you. I see you with your hand on your cheek and listening to Kojo Poku. Do you differ in opinion? What are your initial thoughts? You may have to unmute, Mr. Bauer. Hello, Edward Bauer.
I've done that.
Okay, please go ahead.
Hello. Yeah, so I was saying that I was a bit under the weather, so that's why, and I was just looking at my brother who soon will be the presidential candidate for the MPP, talking. So I was just like, but on a more serious note, I think that we have a problem here. The problem is that we have independent power producers who generate power. They sell the power and they are not paid. And you know that most of these IPPs, most of them, constructed these power plants using debt. And therefore, they need to service their loans. The moment you do not have cash flows, servicing of your loan becomes a problem. And your lenders will begin to be on your neck. That's the first point. Two, they need to be able to, a very large extent, ensure that at least even just their operational costs and other things, they meet it. I believe that is the basis for which the chamber is asking government to do. And I think the chamber had given government sufficient time to begin a conversation. Indeed, with all this period that even the media was talking about this, it was only on the 27th, 28th, and 29th that government scheduled to meet the independent power producers individually. So for all the time that the media houses were shouting and other things, it was only then that they received the letter saying that they were going to meet them individually. That tells you the seriousness of which government had placed on this particular program. That's the first thing. Second point, it must be stated very clearly that this 1.73 billion, as of May, is consumption bill. It means that it is power we have consumed and we have not paid. So that is yet another thing. I believe that yes, government has given some particular suggestions. I know that the IPP said that, look, give us at least 30% of the initial 1.4 billion. And then we can have a conversation on how to spread the rest in terms of settling the other things. Government's suggestion is that, no, I first want to give you a haircut. And at the end of the day, also postpone your payments over a period. And that for the IPP, they see that that is not going to be a good story for them. So that is where we are now. I think that we must first and foremost clearly state that, unlike what Kojo Poku said, I think that the cash waterfall mechanism that was introduced, even though it did not meet all the invoices that had been issued to ECG or whoever the off-taker was, at least it solved part of the problem. So, for example, you had situations where some power generating plants, based on the cash waterfall mechanism, what happened was that at least about 80% of their invoices were met. And so it was something that they could really rely on as a business. Unfortunately, for the past 2 months thereabout, the cash waterfall mechanism has also collapsed. The reason being that at the time when Ghana Gas decided to embark on their routine maintenance, it meant that there was curtailment of gas to the various IPPs, and therefore they needed to buy liquid fuel. ECG's books were not good enough to post LCs to buy those liquid fuel. So government, in its own discretion, decided that instead of crediting most of the accounts of the IPPs from the cash waterfall mechanism, what they did was to rather use the money to polish the accounts of ECG to be able to post an LC for that. So, but the truth of the matter, in my opinion, Ben, and I believe that going forward, we'll talk about the debt itself. But the truth of the matter is that even you talk to the IPPs and they tell you the manner in which the cash waterfall mechanism operates is not transparent. If I know that I have sold power to you, you receive the money in a common pot, and you apportion the money to the various utilities based on how much power we have given. The least I should know is that let me know how much was realized in the pot and how you are sharing it. You talk to the IPPs and they say they just sit down and before you realize they just get an alert on their electronic gadgets that suggests that they've credited the account. How much was in that account that they credited? Nobody knows. So transparency even in the disbursement of the accruals in the cash waterfall mechanism is a challenge. So for me, this debt of 1.73 billion, yes, anytime usually you will have debt in the sector because of the period of payment. Some arrangements are that, look, if the moment I invoice you, in the next how many days you must pay. So obviously there will always be some arrears that will be there. So there will be some level of debt. But to have debt to the level of $1.73 billion is huge. And maybe going forward, we will be able to explain where the source of this debt is coming from.
Thank you for those initial comments. Let me now bring in Dr. Yusuf Al-Hassan, an energy analyst. Doc, please unmute. Let's hear from you. What is your initial take on this? We started some weeks ago, we had a conversation on this. You shared your thoughts. We're getting closer, as some will say, to a power doomsday. What is your reading of the situation? Hello, Dr. Al-Hassan.
Dr. Suleiman. Can you hear me? The name is Suleiman, not Al-Hassan.
My apologies, Dr. Yusuf Suleiman.
Hassan, Suleiman. But I can hear you. Yes. So yes, it's just unfortunate that we have to come back to, for want of a better way, to regurgitate whatever we have discussed. Of course, there have been some updates that has happened. But going forward, Ben, what I want to say in this period, this 2-minute period that you've given me, is the fact that I just felt so disappointed, that at this moment in time, we haven't had any agreement with respect to the way forward. Because if you look at, as at the time, these IPPs came out with the threats in the way that they are likely to take out power from the grid. And I've heard from the quarters of government information that are coming indicating so many optimism. So I was of the view that, as we are gravitating to the end of this deadline, something would have been gotten, something substantial and cogent would have come out from it. But as it is now, it's almost looking like the inevitable is becoming unescapable. And why am I saying that? If an entity threatens you, and giving you so long a time at this moment in time, and then getting to the end of the month or to the tip of where they want to actualize whatever that the threat is going to be, or whatever the threat is going to be. And if actually the IPP should stay the course in this threat, it's going to be a problem, undoubtedly. And I'm saying that because we all know, over the years, the IPPs, they have come to stay. If you look at the problem that brought the IPPs into the picture, the springing out of IPP into the picture, we all knew that. And that was Dumsor days. And so we decided to liberalize the sector. And I think that has done us a lot of good. After we liberalized the sector, a lot of private people increased the number of power availability to the end user. That's something we can talk about. But what is important is that we are now talking about an installed capacity closer to over 100,000, over 5,000. Now peak demand barely reaches. Just get a little bit about commercialized. We only end up complaining about excess capacity that we have. And the information I'm getting is that even this one is not the capacity charges. It's typically what has been supplied to them, and they've not been able to get it back. And these are business entities, So I just hope
we're facing some challenges.
The position of government is not what my good brother Kojo just espoused, because that would be. Come again?
No, go ahead. Go ahead. You're making a point. We're losing you, but go ahead.
I'm just hoping that I'm just hoping that the position of government is not what my good friend Kojo Poku espoused, because then that is actually the root cause of this inertia. Because I thought the inertia just simply too much. Yes, we've sent.
Dr. Suleiman? Oh, it's really sad because he was making a point and I wanted him to finish on that point so I would be able to probe further when I get back to Kojo Poku. Dr. Suleiman, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you loud and clear.
Just go back about 30 seconds. You were saying that you disagreed with Kojo Poku on the points he was making. What do you mean?
No, not necessarily disagreement, but what I'm trying to say is that there's a little bit of factual basis in terms of what has been signed. But if the posture is that you can also take them to court of sort because you have some bargaining power, you are owing them. If you're going to weigh the balance of probability or the balance of who has the bargaining power, there's no doubt about that. And ideally, if they should stay on the course of taking our power from the grid, we are talking about players who are occupying about 65% to 70% of the thermal generation mix. And the thermal generation mix is still key. And then also we are talking about players who are occupying about 45 to 50% of these guys. You cannot do that. So in that case, I'm calling for the fact that we need to be serious. And we need to do this negotiation in good faith. But if we're going to stay within our individual corteses, that I have also bargaining power, somebody else has bargaining power. And I just say that if you want to state probability, who has more bargaining power at this moment in time, I think the IPPs, the balance of proportionality, the IPPs will do that. So I call on the government to just sit down with them and understand. They've requested 30% of whatever is due them. What is the government ready to offer? We don't know anything at this moment in time. And that's my worry about the whole this. So my expectation is that, of course, we have crunch meeting ongoing. It should come up from there. Other than that, the alternative is simple, terrifying, Bernard, because we all know what Dumsor, the problem that comes with Dumsor is something that nobody wants to revisit. And I think people, businesses and individuals, they don't deserve, especially people who religiously pay their tariffs, they don't deserve any uninterrupted supply of power. That shouldn't be, that should be a problem.
Right. Dr. Suleiman, hold for me. So
and that's something we should avoid.
Right, we should avoid it. Those who religiously pay their tariffs, utility tariffs, shouldn't be subjected to Dumsor. Let me bring in Mr. Yakubu, who is with the Research Policy and Programs Office of the Institute for Energy Security. For you, your initial thoughts on this matter. And after that, I'll come back to Kojo Poku if he has any response for Dr. Suleiman, and we'll move the conversation from there. But for you, Mr. Yakubu.
Yes, so let me say good morning to my co-panelists and say good morning to your listeners out there. I feel very sad that we have to get to this point, because it's not like the IPPs just woke up one day and told us that if we don't get the money, we are going to shut down the plants. They gave a timeline. They kept giving government ultimatum upon ultimatum. And so it tells how unserious the managers of our power sector are. It tells how unserious the managers of ECG are, because if ECG was really committed to pay, they would have gone to the table. You are asking for 30%. We've looked at our coffers. We can't give you 30%. I remember the chamber, even at a point, made it clear that even the 30%, they are willing to start a negotiation if government can put 10% on the table to start to talk. But don't come to the table empty-handed, because, mind you, it's like we are not getting the whole conversation. This is not power yet to be supplied. This is power that has already been consumed. So the IPPs are arguing on the position that tariffs have been received, monies have been collected from users of our power. Where is the money? Let's get their point very clear. That is the question they are asking. Where is the money that has been collected from users of this power that we are asking for? Make it available to us so that we can also pay for our operational costs. I don't think this is something difficult to ask for. And so at this point, government is on the position of weakness. And so government cannot be adamant and government cannot be arrogant at this point. At this point, government needs to be very...
But government can exercise its legal options. Of course, maybe with consequences, but it can exercise its legal options. For example, if the IPPs decide to shut down, then, of course, there will be legal implications.
Yeah, so take a legal implication against not being able to meet your IMF targets if you should have a power crisis in the country. So the problem goes beyond legal battles and what have not. Because at the end of the day, the economy needs to be running so that government can get whatever monies they need from the different actors of the economy to be able to meet some of its commitments with the IMF. So even that conversation of legal options available to government, what then happens if you terminate those agreements through legal options and all that, then the country comes to its knees. So this idea of government has a position to argue on, let's not even get there, because it's not an overnight decision the IPPs took. It was series of periods. They kept moving, then they gave 30th June as the deadline. If I'm not mistaken, 3 weeks away, we had this conversation, and by then, government hadn't even engaged the IPPs. So what are we saying? Only to come at the fourth hour and say, we have options? No, I think the citizens of Ghana, we deserve better, and the management of our economy and the power sector, to be specific, needs to exercise a bit of restraint when dealing with this, because this is people's lives we are talking about, people's incomes we are talking about. It's not about legal options. No, the Ghanaian is not interested in these legal battles. The Ghanaian is interested in stable prices of stable electricity that are sold to them at affordable prices. Yes, right. The issue of competitive prices here and there. If the power is there, one thing I believe in is Ghanaians are ready to pay whatever tariffs if the light is there. The only difficulty they have is if they are paying the tariffs and the light is not available. And we've seen it in the oil and gas sector. These days, nobody really cares how much fuel sells, because at the end of the day, you go to the pumps, the fuel is there. And so why can't we have the same thing in the power sector? This is my initial.
Those are pertinent issues you've brought up. Richard Salome is watching us. He says, is failure to pay the debt not a breach of contract? Well, that is also a breach on our side. Of course, there have been breaches from different parties as far as this is concerned, because you signed an agreement and you must stick to the terms of the agreement. But let me come to you, Kojo Poku. I have an interesting thought for you. Apart from any reactions you may have to what Edward Bauer, member of the Mines and Energy Committee, has said, and Dr. Suleiman, who disagreed with you on certain points in terms of approach, I would ask you as well, after you've dealt with that, you want to lead Ghana. If you were president at this time, how would you meander through this conundrum, this IPP conundrum that we are facing? Kojo.
Ben, I think I have told you this multiple times on your newspaper review. What the IPPs are asking for is one bullet payment. And I have said that this is not a Ministry of Finance situation. It's an ECG situation. Today, what ECG should do is basically be able to now guarantee a portion of what they call distribution service charge, okay? Guarantee a certain portion of their revenue stream to a lender. That lender can now lend you about $500 million of bullet payment today.
You mean they should find someone to buy their debt? Is that what you're saying in layman's terms?
Not buy the debt. Not buy the debt. You go into the look. It's ECG is a company. So let's move away from the Ministry of Finance conversation a little bit and go to ECG as a company. Okay. When you're a company and you are indebted, your books are not good. So people will not naturally lend you money on credit because of your history that you don't have money. But if you guarantee a payment stream, so let's say you get 52 pesos per kilowatt hour as what we call the distribution service charge, okay, DSC. If you now tell a lender that I will give you 10 pesos kilowatt hour of my distribution service charge for the next 7 years, that lender can calculate how much that 10 pesos per kilowatt hour for the next 7 years is and lend you against that 10 pesos. So you've actually guaranteed part of your money to get one bullet payment for the IPPs. Then you can sit with them and renegotiate the rest of the money. You have said that they are asking for 30% payment. And this is a solution I have called Dubik and told Dubik, the MD of ECG, that look, try and let's look. AfriExim was in town a couple of weeks ago. They had their annual conference in Ghana. The president of AfriExim and his team was in Ghana. The ECG could have sat in front of the AfriExim and told them that, look, help us, give us 500 million bullet payments. This is how in the next 7 years we will pay. So if you ask a direct question, if I was president, I would look at the commercial solution, which is find commercial money, not short to medium term money, 7 years to 8 years money for ECG. Let them now commit a certain payment from their distribution service charge and commit to that. That will solve a lot of the problem. Now, let me go on and talk about certain things.
So just before you go on, so on that very beat, now there was a time when the ECG proposed that they would give about $15 million a month to the IPPs, and that was it 15 million? Yeah, I believe. And that was poo-pooed, that was jettisoned. They said they wanted about 50 million a month. I forget the currency though, whether it was in CDs or dollars. But it was rejected because of the quantum of money that is required. Are you then saying that the approach of the ECG to this problem is not the most apt, the most practical approach they ought to be using to deal with the situation?
Yes, it's not. It's not, because ECG is a company, and as a company, aside being owned 100% by government, you should have a commercial flexibility in solving some problems. Look, what the IPPs are against is the reoccurring of the debt. And I've constantly said this on your program, that this debt, this indebtedness is like hemorrhaging. You need to stop the bleeding, then solve the wound. That what the IPPs are against is that you want to renegotiate, you want to give them a haircut, you want to do all these things, but there is no pragmatic solution for the debt reoccurring. So what they don't want is that, yes, you can talk all the language and tell them, but number one, what the IPPs don't want is the reoccurring of the debt. So today, if you are able to put certain measures in place, one, give them a bullet payment of, let's say, $500 million, right? Then the cash waterfall, the IPPs want representation on the distribution of the cash waterfall. So you give them representation on there. So they know that if they give you 1,000 cedis worth of electricity, you pay them back 1,000 cedis. So the reoccurring of the debt stops. Then you can talk about haircut of the debt that is left. But you cannot want to discuss haircut. You cannot want to discuss indebtedness when you have not solved the reoccurring of the debt. That is the solution that we should have going forward. So now, let me go briefly to now address some of the things my brother said. Look, energy or power in most countries are what you call a national security issue. We have gradually have about 72% of our energy production in terms of power in the hands of private sector. there should be security implications if 7 companies decide that they are going to shut down their plant. That is why when government give what is called a power purchase agreement, there are clauses in there to protect the nation and to protect government. It is not for you and I to just wake up one morning and a private company decides that he's going to shut down his plant. That is why there are legal implications. When I said that there are legal implications, what I meant is that there is a process. Nobody is saying that you can't shut down your plant, but there is a process you have to follow to shut down your plant. One, if I owe you, there is a guarantee I gave you. Call on that guarantee. If you call on that guarantee, within 30 days, I have to put the guarantee back. If government doesn't put the guarantee back in 30 days, then your power purchase agreement, so as you have it, is terminated. It is a natural process. So what I'm saying is that, look, let's not confuse the threat being given by the chamber to threat being given by individual power purchase agreements. Individual IPPs. When a meeting was held last week, the IPP's number one problem is the distribution of the cash waterfall. They understand the indebtedness. They are not really going on this thing that, look, pay me my money. No. The pay me my money now came as a result of government wanting to renegotiate the debt and give them a haircut, as my brother said. But recently, the disruption, as my brother Edward Bauer put it so correctly, that we use some of that money to buy liquid fuel. That has disrupted the amount of money that goes into the cash waterfall. So what the IPPs today, their number one problem when the meeting was held in the Jubilee House, their number one problem is, one, representation on the cash waterfall committee. They want to have a say in how that money is shared, and also to make sure that the debt doesn't reoccur. They understand the indebtedness. So that's not the reason why they are threatening. So that is what I wanted to basically make clear, that, look, the issue we are discussing today is not because they think there's indebted. Indebtedness has been there for the last 10 years. So that is not the reason why they are agitating. They want a fairer representation on the cash waterfall and a solution so that we don't have this reoccurring of debt.
All right, thank you for those comments. So interesting stuff. Edward Bauer, you were talking about transparency in the cash waterfall situation, because they don't know how much goes in there, and then all of a sudden they get certain disbursements. They don't know what percentages are going to whom, which IPP. That is a problem. How do you feel government should be addressing that moving forward? And 2, talk has been brought to bear in respect of practical rates. Kojopoku just said that, look, we've not been paying practical rates for the energy we consume. Do you agree with him? And if you do, what then should be the practical rates we should be looking at to forestall some of these issues? Because if push comes to shove, if these situations keep coming up and government is indebted, the ECG is indebted, and the power plants go off, it comes back to us, Dumsor, and we have to pay the consequences. So please address these 2 for me.
Thank you very much. Before I deal with that on the issue of Kojopoku continuously talks about this guarantee that, obviously, there are some power purchase agreements that the off-taker will post a guarantee, so that if, for example, you do not have a situation where you are unable to pay your bill, they can rely on that guarantee as a basis. And then there's a period under which the account is replenished. Unfortunately, Kojopoku should go back and look at it. Apart from car power, ECG has not posted guarantee for any of the independent power producers. Indeed, if you look at the Twin City plants that's run by the General Mandi or something, they have a situation where they have what we call the put and call option agreement. And so Kojopoku keeps on hammering on guarantee, and that you should rely on a guarantee, you should rely on a guarantee. I am telling you that ECG has not been able, they do not have, apart from car power. And even with the car power, it is because of the arrangement with GMPC to post that, and now that particular guarantee was replaced by Letasco.
So are you suggesting that in terms of guarantees, we only car power, 1 out of the 9 entities, has a guarantee?
Yes, it's a car power, yes. And that was not even posted by ECG. It was posted by GMPC on behalf of ECG. Then later on, government did an arrangement with Letasco to replace the $79 million guarantee that they post on behalf of Kapawa. So basically, that is not, his position is not very accurate. in terms of all the IPPs. That's the first point I'm trying to make. The second point I want to make, and that has to do with the issue of when you talk about this, your tariff, the tariff, whether it is reflective. Ben, you recall, and I'll tell you that it's true. First and foremost, to answer your question directly, it is not reflective. We do not have cost-reflective tariff. But you recall that in 2018, as part of a government fulfillment of a promise that was made by Nanado Atamanchagona, where he said that tariffs were more expensive than rent. To fulfill that and talk about the fact they were going to reduce tariffs, you remember that they reduced tariffs about 17% in 2018. Some of us raised the issue that, look, if we are not careful, we will run into trouble. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Was that the beginning of how we got here?
Yes, so I'll tell you, yes. And that's what I'm going to. So then, and if you remember that then, the CEO of Gridco, Jonathan, is it Brown or something, had indicated that, look, just Gridco alone, they were going to, in terms of their revenue requirements, they were going to lose about 230-something million Ghana cedis just in 2018. Fast forward. So because of that, if you look at the total indebtedness that we have found ourselves, one is the fact that we have a shortfall in capacity payments. So I produce, say, X amount of money, but you are unable to pay me that X amount of money. And that is a huge issue that we need to look at. And from Ken Ofori-Attah's document that he brought to Parliament during the Senja motion, if you recall, he had said that for shortfall capacity payments, we're owing 10.1 billion Ghana cedis from 2017 to, you remember when they told him to break down the 17.31 billion as part of when they initially said that it was excess capacity. He said that was for shortfall. Then the next one is the issue of fuel supply. Ben, fuel is a pass-through cost. So which means that the tariff that they set for you, and you pay, when you pay your electricity bill, part of the cost, part of the amount you pay is for the fuel they use. So fuel is a pass-through cost. However, if you look at the total indebtedness as per what the finance minister said, that alone is 7.31 billion fuel alone, fuel supply that government has to pay, even though we Ghanaians have paid for it. 3, my brother, you go and talk with, you see, if you look at the tariff structure that is being given by PURC, there's an allowable, loss you can make. So for example, PURC will say, if you look at their benchmark losses, they indicate that, look, you shouldn't have, in terms of your commercial and then technical losses, you shouldn't go beyond 23. Now, what it simply means is that if your losses are between 23, just 23 or below, the tariff takes care of it. Anything beyond that, it becomes a liability on you. Now, if you look at that, the figures that ECG has given to us suggest that in 2017, beyond just the benchmark that has been given by PURC, if you look at 2017, our losses in 2017, our losses was in terms of just that, it cost ECG about 1.3 billion. In 2018, it cost about 1.5 billion. In 2019, it cost about 1.7 billion. In 2020, it cost about 2 billion. In 2021, about 2.6 billion. And in 2022, about 2.8 billion. And this is because over the period, just take from just 2020 to 2022, the losses, ECG made a loss of about 26.2 billion percent. In 2021, 29.31%. And in 2022, it's 30.63%. So it tells you that if I give power to ECG, I give ECG power worth 100 Ghana cedis. ECG can only account for about 70 Ghana cedis. So it means that from the beginning of even the arrangement, ECG cannot account for even 30% of the debt. I don't know whether you're getting the point I'm trying to make.
Right.
And so it becomes part of the challenge that we have. So if you ask me directly, beyond just setting the tariffs right, it is important that we begin to start looking at even the other sources of what we call a loss. Because even if your tariff is right, and then you still have the ECG not being able to account for the power that they give to them, then it means that you still will have the situation. And part of this problem, Ben, you'll be surprised that, what's his name? Government. Part of it is commercial losses. Commercial losses means that you use power and you don't pay for it. Go and look at government's own document that they authored, known as the Energy Sector Recovery Plan or Program. In that particular program, they said for ministries, agencies, and departments, government ministries, agencies, and departments, on annual basis, government defaults to a tune of $180 million. Convert that into cities. That's huge money. That's huge money just for government entities using power and not paying. And so I just want you to just know that, look, it is not just about just having the tariff being right. There are other areas that we need to resolve. And I believe that part of it was how the issue of the Compact 2, that's the Millennium Challenge account, was supposed to solve. It was supposed to ensure that, look, at the downstream sector, and that is the, the ECG, the distribution end, we should, if you look at the value chain, the distribution end, we should make sure that we reduce their losses. And unfortunately, you and I know what happened. Just a simple procurement process in the PDS issue, we lost those monies. And so it is part of the challenge that we have. Maybe going forward, there are a few other issues that we can bring up.
Let me come to you, Dr. Suleiman. I hope the connection is better now, but if you can hear me. So if you look at our average annual debt accumulation, as far as our energy sector debt is concerned, it stands at $1 billion every year over the last few years. That's what the picture has been. Now, if you look at our average annual capacity payment, it stands at, that is the average annual excess capacity payment. It stands at $500 million. Look at the deficit in there. Excess power, and of course now we can't even talk of excess power because we don't have excess power generational capacity. But is that, what proportion of the problem is it? This debt, the excess capacity payments, and everything else related to it?
Yeah, so it's a mixed bag, and it's good you brought out these figures clearly, Ben. First of all, I think our major issue within this power distribution sector is phenomenal inefficiencies. We've been talking about take or pay, take and pay. Ben, even if you sign take or pay agreement and you are phenomenally efficient, it will almost like take and pay. You will not, especially if you have your plant running continuously and you are able to run the plant efficiently. Even signing take or take and pay is not a matter of, it shouldn't be an issue. But our major problem within all these value streams is phenomenal inefficiency. And I agree with Edward. See, if you ask me between paying cost-reflective tariffs and then, the efficiency bit of it or plugging the loopholes, I think we cannot keep on pouring water into a leaking basket. It will never get full. So there's no amount of money that you can inject into the system if you don't plug the loopholes. So these two places that you clearly narrated, first of all, some of them were avoidable, like some of these excess charges. Capacity charges, they were avoidable. It's still high. We can't do much about it. But I think the bane of the issues, even talking about both instances, is phenomenal inefficiencies. And where are these phenomenal inefficiencies emanating from? Ben, Kojo just mentioned that ECG should just pay the money. Should just tackle, should have been able to deal with, the IPPs. That should have been ordinary. That should have been and it's right. Ordinary, that should have been the point. But who is ECG and who is Minister of Finance and who is government? We are all lumped up. And that's where the inefficiencies are in. If we're able to make our institutions independent and robust, they'll be able to pay these debts. Seriously, they'll be able to do something. We wouldn't run into this. So the core of the issues that we have phenomenal inefficiencies in this. And the phenomenal inefficiencies, they are just emanating from unwarranted, interference with political actors of the day. Whilst politicians are supposed to create that enabling environment for business to triumph, they want to be in the forefront in doing this business. That cannot be. That has been the issue. So yes, it's not that we didn't see this coming. This was always, we were always going to be at this point. And it's true, debt has always been there. But the difference between that, what we have been talking about, and this time is the fact that we are almost about facing what's almost like inescapable if you don't do something right. That's the big thing that is different. And I just explained that. The quantum that these guys are contributing, we brought them into the picture. The quantum that they are contributing and the amount and the way we are approaching this thing, we are behaving as if we have options. Ben, we don't have credible options. Yes, we don't have credible options. Where are the options? If we had actually diversified our generation portfolio, where we can have like an alternative to IPPs, we don't have alternatives. So where is our bargaining power? So yes, going forward, I mean, we don't have to just keep blaming this person or that person. We have to come together and then agree on something. And that's my problem. I think we are not agreeing on anything at this moment in time. And if it continues like this, and at the end of the day, they stay course on their promise, we're going to have their threat. We're going to have ourselves to blame. And I think the government will take the blame for everything, because it is the duty of the government to resolve all these issues. All right. So yes, I think if we inject efficiencies into our systems, a lot of these leakages will take care of themselves. Other than that, and we can do that by just get these institutions to be independent. Now, the other thing, the second thing I'll mention is that look at what, after we liberalized this generation stream, what has happened? We've gained a lot. I mean, it was able to solve this Dumsor that we have. Though we have some power plants that are lying idle, and because we are not strategic enough. If we're strategic enough and stop complaining about excess capacity, and rather channel our energies in commercializing those plants that are sitting idle, we wouldn't be where we are. You have idle plants that can give over 5,000. You don't consume up to 4,000. Then you are complaining. Why don't you exert your energy to commercialize these idle plants? All right. If in any case you can export that is a lot of money that you're going to get. But we'll keep on sitting down complaining that maybe another administration has done this and then they have accumulated that, and we'll keep on complaining about it. And we are not finding solutions to that. That has been the problem. So going forward, on ECG side, I think probably they are doing so well at this moment in time, but I just urge them to try to minimize the losses, and it all boils down to the efficiency aspect that I talked about. And then can we think about also liberalizing that stream? It will be a bold decision, but it's going to be a difficult decision. But I think we can think about that. If that's the only conduit that can inject efficiencies into the system, then it's high time we think about that, to bring other players so that we don't have this single stream where ECG is only the monopoly. If you have an alternative stream that can inject efficiency, why not? We can try that. And I think that should be able to work for us.
So you're saying we want an alternative to the Electricity Company of Ghana. Initially, they were purely government run. They became a company, and we know the different dynamics. We had the PDS, and we reverted to the ECG. What more must be done, really? I don't know. Will the alternative be the solution?
Yeah, so if you look at the PDS, why it collapsed, because of the same issues. It's not that it's not supposed to, it shouldn't have been a very good deal, because I believe the intent would have been able to inject some efficiencies, especially some capital and some bit of efficiencies. But like the way we approach things, our interests come first. You know, if you're going to a negotiation table and then you are coming with a mindset of empty hands, that cannot be.
Okay.
You have to come with a kind of a mutual interest. So yes, all these are models that we can revisit, but we have to take a different dynamics. We have to take a different approach. When I talk about maybe the alternative or liberalizing it, it's just to also bring in private sector, even the revenue aspect of it, where we can commercialize it to make sure that we are able to recoup most of this revenue. And I tell you that most of these issues are not even the domestic home. It's the SOEs and the government. So yes, we know where our problems are, or we know what the SOEs and even the ministers are owing. If you can plug these loopholes and try to just recoup maximum that we can and plug the leakages, I think we will be in we will be better placed. And then these repetitive events should be something of the past, something we shouldn't be thinking about then.
Hold for me. I'm sure those of you watching us, you can see at the bottom of your screen, we've put our number there, 0302-211-691. I see some of you sending in some messages suggesting your thoughts. Call us. You may have that brilliant idea that could save the sinking ship of Ghana when it comes to power. And I use those words cautiously because, look, no one wanted us to have got here. We're here, whether it's been coming for 10 years or 5 years. We're here. And we don't want to go back to Dumsor. That is the bottom line. So what is your take? What do you think? Call that number, 0302-211-691. We have Sadiq from Kumasi. Gentlemen, our guests, just hold for me. I'll be coming to you, Mr. Yakubu, next. But Sadiq, what are your thoughts for us?
Okay, good morning and good morning to your panelists. I respect all of them. I have a question. My question is, why don't the government SOEs, why don't the ECG give them some kind of prepaid so that they get out of the national grid, so that you don't get, you understand what I'm saying? You don't get these kind of problems every time and then. That is my question.
So if you could reframe that, I didn't get the thrust of it. Why don't what?
Why don't the ECG, like the other companies, we don't give them the prepaid so that they don't come into the national grid? That is my question. So that they don't give us the debt that we have right now.
But it's a take or pay situation. I'm not too sure I understand what you mean.
I mean that my home right now, I have a prepaid. It gets finished. I go to the ECG vendor and I buy it. You understand? So I want the SOEs, the government, the agencies and the institutions, they also have the prepaid so that when it gets finished, they buy it on their own. They don't get into the national grid so that our debt...
I get the point you're making now. So, but I'm sure many of them, I mean, thank you, Sadiq, for your thoughts. I'm sure many of them are on the prepaid system, unless we want to say many of them are on the old system where they consume, and then now you must try and get the money from them, recoup the money from them. I now get the point you're making. 0302-211-691, if you have any brilliant thoughts on how we can solve this problem, or any thoughts for that matter on the power situation, and what Dumsor could mean to you as well, if it comes back, you can share with us. Let's pick Yakubu from Kumasi, and then we'll come back to the Yakubu, who is my panelist. Yakubu in Kumasi.
Good morning to your listeners and good morning to your panelists there. My problem is, what is the use of the prepaid meters? But it comes to actual those debts that those who don't want to pay light, that was the reason why they bring prepaid meters. Is that not it?
Go ahead with your point, Yakubu, and maybe minimize the volume on your set. It's giving us feedback.
You go and buy your own. Why is it that they didn't put all the meters in everybody almost so many years now? They can't do that. They didn't put all the meters.
Well, Yakubu, we're getting a lot of feedback from your TV, I guess. When you call, just lower the volume. Turn it off completely. Just listen to us on the phone line. Are you still with us, Yakubu?
Yes. Hello. Hello.
Yakubu, so basically, wrap up with your point, if you can.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is that, and because we were knowing PDS was coming basically to solve all these problems, it didn't happen. When PDS didn't happen, are we saying that we don't have any plan again?
All right.
And that is why up to date we are here again. I mean, what country are we? And we are paying people equal of money to do our work for us, and they can't deliver, and they are sitting there. How? You are not serious as a country.
Thank you, Yakubu, for sharing your thoughts. Anthony Boosters on Facebook, our live stream says, why on earth are they not exporting the excess power? Why is this government behaving like this? We don't have excess power anymore to export. That's the whole point. Let me come to Yakubu of the IES. So in terms of a cash waterfall mechanism, if you're using World Bank data, it talks about the recipient's mechanism for distributing revenue from the sale of electricity proportionately among the relevant energy sector market players involved in the electricity supply value chain. That is what we're doing. But apparently we're not getting it right. What do you make of the call for more transparency, for the IPPs to have a seat in there? And what do you also make of this? Are we unduly antagonizing the IPPs with our position? Yakubu. Oh, it appears we've lost Mr. Yakubu, but so we'll try to. Yakubu, did you get the question?
Question again, I didn't get it. I was lost at it.
So I'm saying we have a cash waterfall mechanism. I was just given the definition according to the World Bank for our viewers. There have been calls for more transparency, a seat for the IPPs and all of that. What do you make of that situation? And two, are we, with our positioning, are we unduly antagonizing the IPPs? Over time, they've been telling us the debt is getting to unsustainable levels. We've sat down, it has got to this point, and now they say they are going to shut down. Now we're calling for more meetings. They say no more meetings, pay us our money. Are we unduly antagonizing them?
Yeah, so we are not unduly antagonizing them, but as a country, we are also scared of what it means for our citizens. So that is why you see government being a bit jittery when it comes to the issues with IPPs. But the bottom line is simple. At least it's fair representation if they are at the table. Because I can't give, if they are at the table, they would also give brilliant suggestions as to how the revenue can be recouped, right? And one thing that is common in the whole conversation is ECG is where the problem falls on. Is it not about time we allow
It appears we're struggling with a connection to Mr. Yakubu. Let me, in the interim, bring Daniel. He joins the conversation on phone. Hello, Dan. Where are you calling from?
Please, I'm from Kasua.
Kasua?
Adade. Yes, please, precisely.
All right.
And good morning to your panelists and yourself. Hello?
We are listening. Go ahead.
It's unfortunate. Government is causing all these things. Look at the PDA. Look at what he caused. Look at what he caused during the PDA. And look at the number of government organizations who are not paying their bills. And all these things are accumulated. What are all these things? Please, they should answer this question for us. What are they doing to say those things? Because we can't live in a Dumsor. Why? So thank you very much. Have a blessed day, sir.
Thank you, Daniel. Have a blessed day too. No one wants Dumsor to come back. No one wants to even remember what it meant to be in Dumsor. We don't want to even think about it. So, I mean, that one we're on the same page with. Do we have Yakubu back? Yakubu, can you hear me now?
I can hear you, Ben.
You were missing in action because your connection was not so good. Please go back to the point you were making.
Yeah, so I'm saying that the fact that is established by all panelists is ECG is where the burden lies with. And so it seems ECG is overwhelmed, and it is about time we open up the space.
Why do you feel the ECG is overwhelmed?
Yes, because one, we were only talking about technical losses and transmission losses. But remember, even the recouping of the remaining amount of money that is distributed is not something that ECG has been able to do successfully. One, because citizens also engage in some activities of power theft. And so we at the Institute for Energy Security maintain that it is about time we zone the country into smaller bets, give it to different companies to manage. Then we are sure that with this, they will be able to police the various areas that have been allocated to them, because they would have had some revenue commitments to what? The agreement in the first place. Because look at the power sector. The IPPs, they have remained committed. Could you imagine a situation where IPPs were not supplying the agreed quantity of power? They have stayed true to their commitment. They supply us the power. We, on the other end of the bargain, to collect the money and pay it back is where the challenge is coming from. So it is about time we open up the space, the distribution value chain, allow private sector to come in, inject some capital, inject some efficiency, because remember, ECG also needs capital to work on some of their projects. And so if we can allow private people to come in to inject fresh capital into the sector, recoup the money, there would be some level of efficiency. The second call I will make is to citizens. Let's be honest and stay away from this power theft, because when you do it, you are not being smart. You are not being smart at all. You are just putting a burden on all of us at the end of the day. And so let's, in as much as we would blame ECG, we as citizens of Ghana who do not want Dumsor to return should also be a bit responsible in ensuring that we don't engage in power theft at all. Because at the end of the day, this is where the problem will come back to. We are not able to pay the tariffs, or we refuse to pay, and we expect the power to come. I'm not sure it is something that we can do.
All right. Before I wrap up with you, gentlemen, Abindao, do we still have Abindao on the line?
Yeah, Kaku, I'm still on the line.
Quick thoughts, Abindao.
Yeah, I think that our power headache lies on the solar power alternatives. Because most Ghanaians, we don't use heavy gadgets such as fridges and the rest. And with the common solar panels, we can be able to power our television sets, our bulbs, and just so that at least ECG could have been released. But at least what have they done about solar? They know very well about it, and they have sung about it. Up to date, nothing has done. And you can't get any alternative. Meanwhile, every day, our sun has been scorching on earth for nothing. And they will come with theoretical policies very nicely and beautifully for nothing. Says that independence and that we had this hydroelectric power. Didn't they have in mind that the solar is also another good alternative to the ECG or to our source of power? What have they done about it? So I think that without serious action on solar power to
all right, Abindao, I think your point is made on solar power. I think we get the thrust of what you're making. In fact, in concluding, it was one of the points I was going to bring to the attention of my guests. So as we conclude, 45 seconds each. There's also the case for solar energy. I think it's Algeria also, or Morocco, which has one of the largest solar farms in the world. What are we doing with the abundant sunshine we enjoy? That is another place. Bui is harnessing a bit of that, but can we do it on a larger scale? The second bit has to do with what Mr. Yakubu made mention of. Zoning for more efficiency, more effectiveness. What do you think, gentlemen, on that? And finally, another issue. You don't have to take all of them in addressing the issues. We could split them. There is also the socio-political, economic cost of Dumsor coming back. What would be the real implications? Are we ready? What would be the impact on our already wobbling economy? I'll start with you, Kojo Poku.
Ben, I think Dumsor, as me and you have discussed, we don't have any eminent problem now. If there's going to be Dumsor, it's going to be like the next 2-3 years down the line from the discussion we have had earlier. So I don't think this issue we have will take us into Dumsor. The infrastructure problem, if we don't bring on board more power, is what will lead us into Dumsor in 3-4 years' time. Look, this issue of solar, it is going to take us back to the same problem. We have investors who have brought their money into the country and put up infrastructure. We are not paying them their bills. You want more investors to come in and put up solar. Who's going to pay them? Individuals listening to us, if they want to do solar on their rooftops, they can do that. So I don't think solar should be a national issue. Solar should be an individual issue where individual households decide to install solar in their individual households. So they use solar and they don't use the national grid. On the issue of the multiple concession, it is what we call the last mile. Look, if you look at ECG, you split ECG into two. The main engineering side and then what you call the last mile. It's difficult to split the engineering side, which is the lines, the cables, the poles, with the transformers and everything. It's difficult to split that into various companies. So the proposal is let ECG run that part of the engineering with the cables and transformers. Then the last mile, which is what happens in most countries, which is where from the pole to your house, so the metering, the customer service, where you buy your prepaid, that is what everybody is saying that we are supposed to have multiple concession of those. That has somewhat started because government has started spending money in metering the boundaries.
Okay.
So for you to do last mile, you need to meter the boundaries. After metering the boundaries, then we can now split the last mile into multiple concessions. So it's works in progress, but it has really slowed down and delayed. I thought that should have been done a long time ago because that is also one of the biggest challenges we have: revenue mobilization, customer service to customers, and being able to basically make sure that consumers are happy. And the last mile will solve those problems.
All right. Thank you, Kojo. Edward Bauer, briefly. Edward, you have to unmute. You have to unmute.
First and foremost, let me state that even if the type of power you have will not prevent you from paying. So whether it is solar that we will do, or whether it is wind, or even mini hydros, you still have to pay for the power produced. So it's a question of how do we account for the power that is generated. So irrespective of whether it is thermal, it's hydro, it is wind, it is waste to power, whatever it is, you must always pay for the power. So that's the first point. The issue of, I think Kojo Poko has spoken about that. There has been a program that has been in place, Get Up, which was a World Bank project, had been introduced to do what we call the boundary meters. Say that, for example, you can have the whole of Tema. So it is for power accountability. So, for example, if you have a boundary meter and you give to a particular manager in an area, the manager is supposed to account for the power that has been given to you. So with these boundary meters, then you can begin to start looking at small concessions in a very transparent manner.
All right.
To be able to do those things. Now, the cost of Dumsor to our economy, you and I know, you listed it in your intro, job losses, other things. But I think in this particular case, where I am worried, and I think Kojo Poko has made this, we've over-politicized the issue of excess capacity. The government is not bold enough to begin to start contemplating bringing power on board. And I'm telling you, if we do not put new power by 2026, we will have deficiency of power in terms of generation. And so let's be very careful. We've over-politicized this to the extent that government is not even bold enough, because today, as we speak, and Kojo Poko has been making this point, look, if 2 or 3 of the power plants, even out of the 9, go off, we'll be in trouble. Because if you look at it, I'm sorry, let me just make this, if you look at the available capacity that we have now, it's roughly around 3,600. Our peak demand is about 3,500. So if they take off about 1 or 2 plants, we'll run into trouble. And so let's not underestimate this particular thing and see how we'll take it.
Thank you, Edward Bauer. Thank you for those parting shots you've sent our way. Dr. Suleimana.
Yeah, so I've always maintained that we have to look for long-term solutions. And where we have, if you look at the critical nature of our generation mix, where the thermal plays critical role, and that's where we have ourselves now. We need to be able to, develop our infrastructure in terms of the gas. I believe we have physically installed equipment that are there, but we don't have the raw material in terms of the utility to run them. So yes, I will repeat the call that let's link up the power sector and then the petroleum sector with gas as a conduit. If you do that, that will mean that we may need to increase Ghana gas capacity. If we do that and we also increase the network of pipings that can lead to east and west, we're going to be very, very competitive. That's the thermal side. Number 2, I fully support the fact that we have to diversify our generation portfolio to encapsulate the renewables. There's a lot of potentials that are involved in renewables. We have a lot of oil and gas where I am. But if you look at the quantum of renewable because of the sunshine that way, especially solar, one person made a comment there. That is beautiful. And what it will do is that it will bring a lot of competitiveness. And we could end up getting, competitive tariffs to the end user. And yes, somebody mentioned that it will ease the pressure. Yes, it's a credible conduit to easing pressure on the grid. That's a fact. Other places we have rooftop solar that are installed that served, individual purposes or household purpose, that can be done. And how can it be successful? Let the government create that enabling environment. At the moment, solar is quite expensive. If the government create that enabling environment and then give this private sector to enter into the space of solar, I think it's going to be a good thing. So we have to diversify our portfolio to encapsulate renewables. There's no two ways about it. And if we do that and we lessen even our dependency on the thermal, most of these issues will not be there. And finally, the efficiency bit of it, and I support what my brother from IES mentioned. I've always called that when we liberalize the generation, we saw what happened. Let's not entertain any fears that if we liberalize the distribution, it's going to bring any problem. We only need to be efficient. And there are two reasons: capital injection and efficiency. And the bane of our problem has been efficiency. So if you liberalize it, get efficiency into the system, you will end up seeing that a lot of we could kill multiple birds with one stone if we become phenomenally efficient, whilst we take ourselves from unwarranted. And in fact, if we liberalize it, we bring private sector, this unwarranted interference will bring that to the best possible.
Thank you.
And for Dumsor, it's going to be dire if we allow Dumsor to come back. That's not going to be good. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Suleimana. Yakubu, if you could make it rather brief for me, I'd be grateful. Mr. Yakubu, it's your turn. If you could just go straight to the point for me.
Yes, I said for Dumsor, we cannot play about it. It's not something that we are willing to gamble as a country. It is dire, the consequences of Dumsor on this economy. Like I mentioned in my introduction, that the government should even look at it from the perspective of their commitments with the IMF. If we should have a power crisis, would they be able to meet some of the timelines and some of the goals that they have set against themselves in December? So, but on the issue of solar, you would realize that even Ghana, we are even having a wrong conversation from what the global conversation is. The issue of energy transition is what the global energy conversation is about. And we are still talking about thermal plants, and meanwhile, these plants and what have you are classified as contributing to what? Carbon emissions. And so it is about time we even get our priorities to meet with that of the global priorities that will attract the appropriate investment into the country. Because there's abundance of funding in the area of energy transition, and renewable energies, solar, and its light, wind, and what have you, are areas government could have looked at. Look at our commitments to our national planning contributions. Government indicated they would increase renewable energy by 20% in 2020. In 2030. In 2020, our renewable energy contribution should have reached 10%. So date, we are doing less than 2%. Right? So we are even far away from the reality of the world. And so we have to, about time, go with the international flow. What is happening in the world is energy transition, and Ghana, as a member of the world, should take advantage of it. Introduce renewable energy into the generation mix, and definitely, or increase the contribution of renewable energy into the energy mix. And definitely that would go a long way to help with this conversation of Dumsor we are scared of. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Yakubu. Thank you all, gentlemen, for having joined the conversation. Those who joined the conversation this morning, we had energy analyst, also a flag bearer hopeful of the New Patriotic Party, that is Kojo Nsafwa Poku. Also joining the conversation, you just heard him, Adams Yakubu. He is with the Research, Policy and Programs Office of the IAS. We also had Dr. Yusuf Suleimana, an energy analyst, and Edward Bauer, member of the Mines and Energy Committee of Parliament. That is where we find ourselves as a country in terms of our energy dynamics. Only time will tell whether from tomorrow we're going to be losing power and what government, the ECG, can do in respect of that situation. Stay with us. We have a lot more coming your way on the AM show. When we return, we are going to be having a conversation with Our Lady of Apostles Girls Senior High School, Ola. There's a lot they have to share with us. Do stay. We'll be right back.